Hello everyone, welcome to Chill Dill Trades, where I give you the exclusive on the market and where it's headed, and specific stocks that I like or ones you need to look out for. So today I've made three videos. Well, I've made two videos. I'm going on the third one on Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Bitcoin Cardano, and now Ethereum. Go check out those other videos. I gave a lot of really good insight about where I think Cardano and Bitcoin be headed, as well as where some potential resistance or support for those stocks, and maybe some good prices to consider buying if the price gets to them. So for the last video of the day, this is 3 videos in a row, 3 videos in one day. Please like and subscribe on all of them. I put a lot of effort and a lot of research and charting into these, so I would appreciate all the love that you could put on the videos. Or if you have a different opinion, about them, I would love to hear that as well. But let's make this quicker than the last two videos, because all my videos have been 15 minutes lately, and I know those are hard to watch. So let's quickly look at how Ethereum is looking. So let's first count the positives, start on a good note for Ethereum. So the first positive is a trend line back from January of this year. And so we're still holding this trend line, which is a huge positive for the stock. So when we zoom in, it's so far away, but when we zoom in, it started around January, and we saw it come back, test the trend line once, test the trend lines twice, and then we saw this huge move. And now back on the downside, we see the candle testing it multiple times. So we have one broke below, went back above, so one test, basically 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and basically 8 tests yesterday. So we've had like 8 tests of this line, which is a pro and a con. Pro is a ton of people are buying at this price point, and they probably see that there's a trend line here and they don't want it to break below, or they think that this stock is a good price at this point. The negative is that there has been so much testing of this trend line, which that supply is slowly getting eaten up. So in theory, the more you test a support line over time, if it's to the downside, then there's less supply every time you get to that trend line or that support. And so it's easier to break down the more you touch it. So it looks like we're, in this range of where I think Ethereum's deciding what it wants to do next. But a couple more positives. One, we're currently above a trend line from the all-time high. So if you just draw it down, we broke above it. It back tested it, which is a good sign. And I think it tried to break out, but it failed again. And I think it was just around some of the fear that happened lately with crypto. But that's still a positive that we're above that line. We're holding, the upward trend line, and we're also above the 200-day SMA. So that's a positive. That's kind of, I would say, long-term bullish, is that we're still above the 200-day. Where some of the negatives come in place that we need to start considering, the first one is that we're above the 50 days above the current price. It's something we typically don't want to see. We always want the price to be above the 200-day, 100-day, and 50-day on the daily candles. And so, we broke underneath that on that big pullback, and we're still below it. And, as you can see, we've tried to break above it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and it couldn't. So right now we see the stock, that upwards trend line, we keep testing it. We keep testing the 50-day, and it's kind of going between those price points right now. So as of late, we've kind of been between the 2,900 and 2,100 level. So that's 2,200 level. That's kind of the range we've been in. And we're starting to come down and potentially test that trend line again. Second thing I want to point out, which is not super positive, is we see a channel starting to form. So, we're at the top of the channel at the beginning. You see it go down and test the bottom, and we see it to come up and test the top. Typically what you see is you see it bottom, top, bottom, top. It goes back and forth like that. And technically when you see these channels form. But it's trying to break out really hard. You see it kind of heading to the downside, and it's trying to break out, which, the bulls are like, come on, let's get out of this downtrend, but they just can't do it. So I think if we hold below this trend line and we break, the downward trend line, and if we break below this long-term upward trend line, I think there's some worrisome, it's time to be a little worrisome for Ethereum. And then if we break this upward trend line, we do have a ton of support right below it around the 2,000, 2,100 mark. So that's the next point we're going to want to look for. But if we see it, hold this trading range, break below the trend line, and test and break below the $2,000 range, I say then there's probably a little bit more worry to start feeling. Because in theory, we should come down and test the bottom of this range. Doesn't have to happen, but in theory, if we keep seeing downside, unless we break above the downward range, then this story still exists. If we do keep breaking down, let's look at some really important support lines or support prices. So as I just mentioned a second ago, really big support, the 2100 level mark. So we see, it tried to get, kind of ish that back then, but we see a ton of consolidation here. It broke up, came back down, back tested here, ton of support and consolidation in the breakup. So I think we're going to see something similar here, and we're kind of seeing that now as a bunch of consolidation around that price. So 2100 is a really important price, and right below that, around the $2,000 to $1,900 range is also really big support. So if we do break below, we're going to want to watch for this zone, this $2,100 to $1,900 zone. A lot of support, a lot of support, a lot of support. If we somehow continue to break down, we're going to want to watch this 200-day, which is currently at 1750, which is slowly approaching this next, or actually it's already above the next support line. So we have the 200-day around that 1750. That's going to be really, really important support line. The last time we tested the 200-day was back in May of last year. So we've drawn a pretty big gap between that, but 200-day support is usually a pretty big mark, and so I would say a positive, we have a lot of support and we potentially have a lot of buyers. On the negative side is if we just see these level, the stock just break through these support levels really quickly, that can be a really big negative, because that just shows us that even though these were really important supports in the past or parts of consolidation, people have just given up and they're not buying at those supports anymore. And if that's the case, I don't think we'll get down to $1,000 for Ethereum, but I would say that's probably, in my book, I would be so surprised if we get back down to the $800 range. That'd be insane. But I would say anywhere, if we do break below, below the 200-day, I could definitely see us getting in this $1,000 to $1,500 range and kind of reconsolidating. In the past, we saw a lot of consolidation in this range, from January to all the way to the end of February, and then we broke above, and then we came down to test the area for basically another month. So there's a lot of support in this $1,500 to $1,200 to $1,000 range. So that would be the absolute bottom. We can't predict what's going to happen. Don't try to do it. Don't try to place bets before something technically happens. But I would say Ethereum's kind of in this mystery land with a lot of crypto. I mentioned it in my Cardano videos as well as my Bitcoin. There's just a lot of fear and a lot of uncertainty. And I think fear's kind of causing these big red candles to the downside, but the uncertainty is kind of keeping the price sideways. So these are definitely things. Actually, let's draw something else because I think I just see it right now. I think we're also forming, and this is probably happening on Cardano and Bitcoin, I just didn't notice it at first, but it also looks like we're kind of forming, let's do it like that. It also looks like we're forming a sideways triangle. So we'll have to see kind of, it looks like if we do get to the end of the triangle, we did break out of the downward range, but we are getting towards the tip of that sideways triangle, which is going to be an important part to see if it breaks below the triangle or not. If we break below the triangle, which is around that $2,300 range, we do have some support, but that's going to definitely cause some downward momentum. But if we break above, we could see this break out a little bit. It's probably going to test that 50-day again around 3K. And I personally can see some more consolidation if we don't break down. But I think long term, I think the story is really still bullish. My trading philosophy is always buying in segments or a piece of investment or like portions. So say you want to own $100 of Ethereum, eventually. then like if this stock breaks down to the 20,000 or $2,000 to $2,100 range, buy $25. If it breaks lower, we're looking for, the next support's not till somewhere to $1,700 to $1,500 range. Buy another $25, or maybe even $50, to bring down your average, call it dollar cost average lower. But these are lines to look for Ethereum. I really appreciate you watching it. And this is also a success because if you're still watching it, which I appreciate, you the best, we're at 11 minutes. This is the first time I've made a video less than 15 minutes. We're at 15 minutes. So I really appreciate you tuning in. If you keep watching the videos, I appreciate the continuous support. Please like and subscribe. It tells me that you like the content. In the comments, tell me your thoughts on Ethereum. Where do you think it's going? Do you think it could break lower? Are you seeing something that I'm not seeing? I would love to know your thoughts as well. But as always, appreciate you watching, and I'll see you again soon.